Finally, step away for 1 minute. We're getting there. Looking back at my videos, I'm absolutely amazed and surprised and flabbergasted that I haven't made a video about Levator Scapula. And somebody asked me this week about Levator Scapula. I said, oh, there's going to be something up on YouTube. And it isn't there, so I'm surprised. And the reason I'm surprised is because it's such a big deal in relation to the bodywork I teach. So when we talk about Bowen, Levator Scapula is a really vital place to get right, and a reference point for a lot of the the major work on the upper bodywork. And without that, we're sort of mucking about with trying to sort of attach things to a dog's dinner, if you like. So we've got to get that right. So the Levator Scapula is very interesting. For a start, it's quite deep and it's going through a lot of things. And there's a lot of things over the top of it and a lot of things underneath it. And it's one of those things that when you see people complaining of neck pain or shoulder pain, there's a crossover between the two. And it's that thing of, well, where does one start and the next one end? So where is it for a start? Well, let's have a little look at our fella here. And so Levator Scapula is, as the name suggests, it's related to the scapula. So we've got the medial border and we've got the superior medial angle here. So as the top of the shoulder blade comes around, this is the superior medial angle. This is the spine of the scapula as it runs out to form the acromion of the shoulder blade. So Levator Scapula comes up and it sort of forms these 4 little fingers. Now, it's not brilliantly represented in most of the anatomy books or programs because those 4 fingers are there, but you've really got to actually separate them. They don't, it's not immediately visible that these 4 fingers are there, but they do attach to C1 to 4. So they have these 4 little attachments along the cervical spine, and they sort of spread around to the front, so they create the side of the neck and the sort of a bit of the front of the neck, so this edge, and they are responsible for elevation and pulling the shoulder inwards, so medial movement of the shoulder blade as well. So there's elevation of the scap as well as the sort of the holding inwards. It's a sort of slight rotation that Levator Scap is going to give onto this scapula. And the reason I like it is because pretty much, as we talked about with carpal tunnel before, there's no point really wandering down into the limbs if where the problems are starting from aren't looked at. And so many times the moment you get into wrists or elbows or shoulders, you start to look at a bit of rotation, lateral flexion of the neck and the head, and of course it's restricted, and that's where you've got to start before you can even ever hope to get any changes to nerve problems into the forearms and hands, because all these nerves are coming out of it. So the interesting thing about Levator Scapula is a couple of things that go sort of squish onto it. So you've got the splenius capitis that sort of comes off this spinous process, and you've got splenius cervicis, which is also wedging itself into here. So as Levator Scapula comes into this, it's wedged with splenius cervicis and splenius capitis over the top of it, and then sort of sternocleidomastoid is creating another thick layer across the top of that there as well. And it's sitting across the top of another couple of little interesting structures. So you've got serratus posterior. I don't mind if you say serratus. And the rhomboids are going to be in here. Rhomboid minor is up there. And then really deep underneath it, sort of pulling down onto that, coming right up onto that shoulder blade, is the serratus posterior, serratus anterior, which comes off this shoulder blade as well. So, but the pivotal point for me is going to be sort of Levator Scapula. And the reason being is because it's one of those things that you can actually find. You know that you're on it. Whereas everything else, supraspinatus, all these other tissues in here, it's kind of guesswork, but you do have a landmark of this, and that's this little crunchy bit that you can feel as you walk around, you move yourself around the top of the shoulder blade. For me, it's been a bugbear. If I'm sitting at the laptop for too long, I'm just sort of really achy. It's right in that point in there, and that's that bit that is worse if anybody digs their fingers into it. It's the worst thing that can anybody do for me, because in 3 days' time I'll be in agony. I won't be able to move. So it's quite a sensitive area. If you look at people who just ever so slightly hold their shoulders forward, or they bring their head position forward, and that trapezius then just build up a load of thickened fascia across the top of the shoulders, and Levator Scapula is held in that as well. So there's lots of complexity to it in terms of what you might decide it's going to do, but it's a really good starting point, and it doesn't need to be pounded at. That sort of massaging it over and over again, to me, is just, for me personally, it'll just inflame it. The last one I wanted to mention is the fact that for levator scapula, the moment you've got any elements as far as pectoral tightness or restriction in breath, levator scapula is a good starting place for it. It's an accessory muscle. You can think of it in terms of helping to create space in the thorax, an accessory muscle of respiration. So you can think about the levator scapula creating space and movement through the neck and the shoulders as well. So that sort of posterior triangle all in there. Lots and lots of things going on into there. So that's levator scapula. I'm sorry I haven't done anything for this before, and I'm very glad that we managed to get this fella into place in the end without actually completely destroying the rest of the room. I've got to get him away from here now. Anyway, where do you get your necks and shoulder pains? Where do you feel the stiffness? Where do you feel the tightness? Is the muscle tight, or is it, this whole idea of muscle tightness? And I want to talk about that in another video about why we think that muscles might be tight. But for the moment, that's levator scapula. What do you think? Neck, shoulders, stretching, mobilizing. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your comments, by the way. I love getting your comments and your feedback in below here. And thank you for the regulars who pop by and say hello. It's really great to see you, so thank you very much. Please share the video and like and do all those things we're supposed to do on these social media things, and you know what to do. And I will see you next time. There's so many things I want to talk about. Bye for now.